All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PreStream podcast. I'm Darkside Phil, and I welcome you here to the show. A pretty special one today, because first of all, not only are we going to be covering the usual housekeeping stuff about my streams and my schedule and what's going to be going on in the next few days as usual. Of course, we'll still have the normal shout-outs for contributions and a little bit of Q&A and all that. But today I actually have a pretty interesting story to talk about, because yesterday there was a state of play from Sony regarding a brand new game that we've been hearing about for many years and didn't really have any concrete information about it until yesterday during the state of play, when they finally revealed a bunch of gameplay elements, trailer footage / actual in-game gameplay, and we finally got some critical answers about this game. Of course, the game that I'm talking about is Hogwarts Legacy, the upcoming, now that we know, single-player RPG set in the Harry Potter universe. Not only that, we got release date information, a lot of questions were answered, and I have a lot to say about the game, and also about the situation around the game, because for as many people as I saw on the internet yesterday rejoicing, saying, wow, Harry Potter finally is going to get a good video game. It's been so long since Harry Potter had any video games, and he's kind of fallen out of prominence in that regard. It would be great to see in the modern era a game be made around Harry Potter in that universe. And there's been, holy crap, when was the last time that a major Harry Potter game was actually made? I think there was like a jokeable mobile game made a few years ago, but outside of that, the franchise has been all but dead when it comes to the realm of interactivity. And so, the fact that this game's coming out, you think would be giant positive news. It is, for some, but there is this very unique situation surrounding Hogwarts Legacy and controversy because of the controversy surrounding the creator of the Harry Potter universe, J.K. Rowling. And so today, on the PreStream podcast, I'm going to take a major segment to discuss not only the game, because I'm very interested in the game and talking about it and kind of excited for it, but I'd also like to talk about the controversy, because this is the first time I think I've ever seen this happen. There's actually games journalists and or content creators making public statements saying they refuse to cover or even in some cases acknowledge the existence of Hogwarts Legacy because of the controversy around J.K. Rowling. And I'm kind of like, I think it's time to take a look at that situation today on the PreStream podcast. So this will actually be one of the more serious episodes. I know some days I really have nothing to talk about and we just joke around, we kill time. Today I actually have an agenda. We got good stuff to talk about today. It should be a great episode. Maybe if you like this episode, you would consider giving it a like here on YouTube. Maybe if you like this episode, you would consider giving the stream a like if you're here live, and just maybe you leave a comment. Or, if you really want to go the extra mile, perhaps you tell someone about the podcast. Did you know that Phil does a podcast every day, and sometimes it's topics that he talks about? He's not just some asshole. I am some asshole, but there's more to me. I have many, many facets and faces. There's many aspects to me that many don't realize. Anyway. Excuse me. How you guys doing today? I hope you're doing well, and I welcome you to a full day of gameplay streaming. Just to reiterate what I said yesterday, I now know my schedule not only for this week, but also for next week as well. What are we doing? Well, 3 more days of full-time streaming starting today, and then tomorrow and Sunday. Monday is my day off for this coming week, okay? And then next week, I'll actually be here for 7 freaking days, and that's going to be a unique week because you're going to have ongoing older game playthroughs, but new ones as well. Let's just talk a little bit about that, all right? Okay, so first off, today, after the PreStream podcast, it's Elden Ring. We are still in Caelid. What a shocker. Every area of this game takes quite some time to get through, especially because not only are there very challenging enemies and things to do, but there's also these mini dungeons and things that keep popping up. Yesterday was pretty good with the amount of exploration that I did, but we still got much more to do. In fact, today I'm thinking to re-explore or return to the areas that I had gone to very early on in the playthrough, and I was teleported them way early. and seeing what I've missed, basically, because I know I turboed through them. I barely fought any enemies. I was just trying to survive, and I get the feeling if I take my time, we'll find a hell of a lot more now that I'm actually in level with this content, okay? So I'm interested in doing that today. I'm excited. As you guys know, yes, this part of the game has been kicking my butt when it comes to some of the optional bosses and the like. It should be entertaining, okay? Yes, I'm aware because 4,000 people have been coming around to tell me that there's a big boss that everyone wants to see me fight coming up. Although now I've heard, interestingly enough, the boss was nerfed with the patch that came out yesterday. So everyone freaking out about me fighting this boss, I'm doing literally what the game wants you to do, explore and prepare, and now apparently the boss won't even be that challenging anymore. Figures. You know what else happened today? I turned on my PS5 this morning. There was another Elden Ring update. What was that? I didn't see anything about a new Elden Ring update today, so I have no idea what that did. But interestingly enough, yesterday, when we were actually playing Elden Ring, we discovered more changes with the game than what were in the patch notes. For example, there is a beast sanctuary where you could trade in items to a beast NPC to get rewards. Well, apparently, people playing this game had discovered if you ride the horse behind the sanctuary, you can jump down a series of tree branches and get to a lower area of the sanctuary where apparently there's a bunch of stuff, including useful items and other things. And people, I guess, were under the impression there's no other way to get down there. Okay. Well, now, you can't. I tried doing it yesterday. People were guiding me and said, go do it. And I went to do it, and I just died instantly. Every time that I tried it was death, 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 death. And I'm like, so what are you guys talking about? And people were flabbergasted. They were like, no, I definitely did it in my playthrough. This must be a change that they patched. So it sounds to me like with all the public patches that they did, they also have hidden changes behind the scenes that have changed aspects of the game. That's a little frustrating, especially because I didn't rush through this game. I'm playing it at a pace where I'm balancing it with all of my other content. I told you guys I knew with this game being so long, this would be like a month-long playthrough, if not longer. But how is it fair that people are having completely different gameplay experiences because they patched it only a few weeks after release, and now some people got access to areas and others can't, right? So how are you supposed to get down there? Some people have no idea. So maybe there is a logical time in the story or in the game where you teleport down there and you can do stuff down there. I don't know. I hope I'm not missing out on important critical stuff, though. That kind of sucks that maybe there's items there that other people used in their playthrough and I'm never going to get them now because the game patched it out. I don't know. At one point, I'm kind of ignorant to it because this is my first run. You know, it's not like I've played the game through once and this is my second run or anything like that. So maybe I'm better off just not knowing about the stuff I'm missing. I don't know. I'm still having fun with the game. Admittedly, some of the stuff is becoming a little grindy, especially some of these bosses that are ridiculously stupid, these side bosses. The boss I fought at the end of yesterday's stream was like... I mean, that was literally a situation where they didn't try. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. They were like, oh, let's add an optional boss in the game. Well, we have a boss where you fight one crystal person, and then we kind of cheaped out and we had a boss where you fight 2 crystal people together. How about 3? Why not 10? Why not fill the room with wall-to-wall crystallians and just say, get good, you know? I really admit that really kind of irked me. Because when I play these games, these FromSoft games, and you put a challenge in front of me, I'm the very stubborn guy who wants to beat it. You've seen that in this playthrough so far with the Tree Sentinel, the first dragon, and yes, the stupid-ass Crucible Knight, right? So now, you know, you put me with 3 crystal people in front of me at once, I'm like, I'm going to destroy that challenge. Well, Phil, why don't you summon and do this? Well, I haven't done that the whole playthrough. I'm hoping I can beat it legit, and I did, but man, it took me over an hour, you know? And some people like that. They like that I'm taking the challenges head on and not giving up, and others are pissed. They're like, man, we wish Phil would just constantly make more progress. We don't like seeing Phil take on a tough boss like that. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes further on. Like I said, I'm not against using all the game mechanics there. for success. Pro-level Soulsborne gamers have come out and said it's okay to use every tool possible, especially in your first run. The tools are there. Use them. Don't challenge or nerf yourself because idiots are trying to dictate how you should play the game. You know, you're not doing a challenge run, then don't challenge. You know, do what you need to succeed. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens moving forward. I'm excited for more Elden Ring today, and I hope we get a lot more, we'll get a lot more progress in Caelid. Like I said, I think we'll return to some areas we previously were in, and we'll do more further exploration in said areas because I don't feel like I fully explored those areas yet. Okay? Okay. All right, guys. Then later tonight, on the late stream, it is Friday Night Fights, which is why I'm wearing the darn shirt. Old school Street Fighter 2. This week, we're going to try it on Xbox, because the last couple of weeks we did it exclusively on PlayStation and didn't have too much success. A lot of the same players, a lot of bad connections. So I'd like to give it a shot on Xbox this week and see if we can get a better situation. Keep in mind, this is basically the final countdown for the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection until the new collection, Capcom Fighting Collection, comes out in June, and that's what we'll be playing moving forward. Okay? All right. I'm excited for that. By the way, that is at 6:45 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Then tomorrow, Saturday, more Elden Ring, or maybe not. We'll see. Here's what we're doing. After today, we're going to reassess what's going on with Elden Ring. If everyone's okay with it and I'm still up to it, then tomorrow the main stream again will be Elden Ring, and tomorrow night will be Skyrim After Dark, or Skyrim Anniversary Edition, a late night chill stream. But if after today I am feeling a little burnt out, then I can flip the streams, and we could do a major stream of Skyrim and a night stream of Elden Ring. So I'd rather leave it open as a possibility and see what happens rather than commit to one or the other. We'll see. But either way, you're going to get both games. Just the order is uncertain, okay? And then on Sunday, my final streaming day of the week, yes, it will be more Elden Ring on the first stream, and the late stream will be Horizon Forbidden West. Now, in regards to Horizon, some very quick things to get caught up on here. If you haven't been following the playthrough, I'm basically in the home stretch. My wife was actually telling me that in regards to the story, she didn't spoil, but she's like, yeah, you basically have like maybe 2 to 3 major story arc moments left. So if I just commit to playing the story moving forward, I'll probably beat it this week. I'm currently planning on playing it Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and I'm hoping we can conclude the playthrough Thursday night. Okay? Don't know if we will, but I'm hoping we do. Only because we have multiple new releases coming out a week from today, and I want to tackle those new releases, and I don't want to have so many lingering playthroughs that are unfinished, you see? So, excuse me. So, that being said, I do hope that we end up finishing the game. Last night's stream of Horizon was a double-edged sword for sure. On one side, I made major story progress and had a lot of fun with the elements of the story that did make progress. In fact, at the end, it was a huge cliffhanger when we had to stop playing. I was like, wow, major story developments, and I wonder what's going on, but now I can't find out till Sunday night. On the flip side, man, the game started to come apart. Now that we're kind of in the final hours of the game, bug after bug, issue after issue. At one point, Aloy got stuck swimming in a wall, and it took me about 4 minutes to get her unstuck. At one point, I was in an epic, dramatic situation where everything around me was blowing up and I was trying to escape a building, and there was a bunch of enemies in my way. The enemies decided to all freeze up and become completely undamageable at the very same time. Excuse me. At the very same time, they couldn't hurt me. It was just, like, really stupid. It was like, wow, the game completely glitched out. Enemies that just stand around going like this. Like, wow. And then, at the very end of the stream, there was a dungeon I was doing, and the game basically showed how to be the most uncreative it could possibly be by throwing endless gauntlets of enemies at me, where enemies would literally appear out of thin air and attack me from behind, causing me to die after 5 minutes of gameplay and having to replay those 5 minutes, which is very frustrating. But on top of that, the game started to glitch out. My character literally T-posed in the middle of combat and wouldn't move. So it's like, up to this point, this game had shown a lot of polish and a lot of insightfulness in the level design and everything. And all of a sudden yesterday, all at once in one stream, the game showed a lot of flaws. And I was like, damn, I wonder if maybe I lucked out to this point. and maybe there actually were a lot more bugs and a lot more things that somehow I avoided, because usually I'm the opposite. Usually I'm the glitch magnet. But how is it that I'm like 30 hours into Horizon and it really did feel pretty polished? The only thing I complained about up to this point really was the platforming was a bit wonky. Some of the platforming, it made no sense that sometimes she would jump and grab the ledge, and other times you press the button and she's like, meh, and barely jumps and falls. It's the same input. I didn't change it. The game just decided in one instance she would do the reach animation, and another said, nah, I don't feel like doing it today. But outside of that, you know, it's been a pretty good experience. So yesterday kind of shocked me that I was having so many issues. I guess it's good that we are nearing the end of the playthrough. Okay. Okay. By the way, Lives for Soul, thank you for the $4.20 tip. I know I'm not doing any King of Easter tournament this weekend. Allow me to continue with the schedule so you guys know what's going on. So that's basically the weekend. It's Elden Ring and Street Fighter today. Tomorrow's either Elden Ring Skyrim or Skyrim Elden Ring. And then Elden Ring Horizon on Sunday. I'm off on Monday. When I come back on Tuesday, it'll be Elden Ring and Horizon. Wednesday will be Elden Ring and Skyrim. Thursday will be Elden Ring and possibly the conclusion of Horizon. Then Friday, finally no Elden Ring. On Friday, we'll be doing new releases. It's Ghostwire Tokyo on the PlayStation 5, paired with Kirby and the Forgotten Land on the I almost said the Wii, on the Switch. And then over the weekend, I will be, you know, continuously covering the new game releases, maybe some Elden Ring mixed in there. I will try to play Street Fighter over the weekend. If I do, it'll be Saturday night. It's going to get tougher now to juggle all these games. That's why I really hope that we finish Horizon. And admittedly, you know, we'll see what happens with Skyrim. I think Skyrim will be played less, but there's nothing you can do about that. As I told you guys, Skyrim would come in and out of popularity and in and out of being played more or less, dependent on the new release schedule. Okay? Okay. Now, you may say, well, what about WWE? Okay, I get it. I didn't play WWE. I'm not playing it now. I've already said this a million times. I will get to WWE when the time comes. In fact, if you look at this game release schedule for April, it's pretty empty. There's the Lego Star Wars game, and there's the Lego Star Wars game. That's really it. There's MLB The Show near the end. No, actually, MLB The Show is on April 5th. I'm not playing that shit. It's on Game Pass, so eventually if I want to play MLB The Show this year, I can and get it on Game Pass without having to pay for it, but I don't think I'm playing it. I had no idea it was on April 5th. Like, that's literally it. April's a pretty empty month. And that being said, that's going to allow us to basically play catch-up. You know, play catch-up with a lot of games that maybe I missed out on and didn't have a chance to play. All right. By the way, all of you playing Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy, good for you. I hope you enjoy it. I'm not playing it. I made the decision that I'm skipping that one. Okay? Okay. So that's the schedule for the next week. All right, I hope that sounds good. I want to say thanks to everyone continuously watching, continuously liking the content, engaging with the content. Yes, it's still pretty good. Like I said yesterday, it is slowing down somewhat in regards to playthroughs like Elden Ring. I wasn't expecting that when I'm 40 hours in that every video was going to get insane views and insane likes and insane engagement. But for those who are watching along still, thank you. And for those who are supporting the streams every day, thank you. I really appreciate it, okay? All right. So now I think it's time to get to the subject matter at hand. All right? Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, Sony did a state of play for a new game coming out in the fall, in the holiday 2022, called Hogwarts Legacy. Now, first of all, Sony came out with a state of play about Hogwarts Legacy, so that means it's a Sony exclusive, right? No, it's not. It's actually cross-platform. Well, that's confusing. Don't state of plays usually cover exclusives, or if they're going to dedicate an entire state of play to one game, right? Wouldn't that mean that it's a Sony-owned game? Apparently not. I guess Sony may have been following the development of this game all along and actually likes how it looks and decided they wanted to actually put time into promoting it. I guess. I'm not sure what Sony's marketing strategy is here. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm happy that it did get a whole state of play. You know, we got to see about, what was it, about 12 minutes or something like that of actual in-game gameplay. And we got to see a good idea of what the game's going to be. So let's talk about that because it looks pretty interesting to me anyway. So first of all, coming out holiday 2022, which basically means it could come out October, November, December, January, holiday. You know, any holiday. There's 100 holidays in that time period. So hopefully by Christmas, okay? It is a single player open world style RPG. Now, just that statement alone is shocking because everyone looking at this game up to this point had actually kind of guessed that it was maybe going to be a multiplayer game, an MMO, where everyone kind of makes their own wizard and interacts in the world of Hogwarts. But no, it's actually a single player narrative-based RPG set in the world of Hogwarts of the 1800s. So this is long before the time of Harry Potter. This is earlier days. Interestingly enough, I guess there are characters who were in the Harry Potter books and movies that are in this. For example, there's the ghost guy. I forget his name. The headless ghost played by one of the guys. Wasn't he on Monty Python or something like that? And he was always a character in the movies and the books. Because he's a ghost, he's still in this too. Like, he died long before even these characters lived. So he's in it. And I guess by having it be set in a different time period, what this is going to allow the game makers to do is have some unique creative control over the universe and say, oh, well, see, it's not like Harry Potter because it's earlier and the times were different and yada, yada, yada. Nearly Headless Nick. Thank you, Zen Shuriken, for clarifying. His name is Nearly Headless Nick, the ghost. So, if you were hoping for this game to be all your favorite characters from the Harry Potter franchise, if you were hoping to kick Voldemort squarely in the balls and punch Tom Riddle right in the nose, you're not going to be able to do that, all right? Just so you know. Unless there's DLC content. But in the main game, you can't do that stuff. The universe looks pretty darn good. Now, just for clarification purposes here, so everyone knows, I am not a hardcore Harry Potter fan. I have never read the books. I did see all the movies. Some of the movies I saw multiple times. I like some of the movies. I think some of the movies are quite cheesy and not so good. But in general, I have enjoyed the universe of Harry Potter and the plotline. I do like all the lore created around it and how it feels like a unique universe that kind of stands alone from other, you know, pop culture universes. Although, admittedly, when I see some of the crazy hardcore fans out there that go so insane for this universe, you kind of like, oh, brother. You know, it's kind of like with Star Trek and the Trekkies and stuff and the, you know, Star Wars nerds. And now you've got the crazy-ass Harry Potter fans, right? So that being said, all the things that you would want in the game are in there. Meaning, yes, you're a student at Hogwarts. And one of the things that I definitely saw in the footage shown is that it kind of looks like Bully. You're growing up at Hogwarts, you're learning the spells, you're going to classes and completing mini games and challenges to level up your character, like Bully. You know, the game everyone wanted Rockstar to make, and Rockstar apparently was going to make a sequel to, and then they canceled it because they wanted to make more DLC content and milk Grand Theft Auto Online and Grand Theft Auto 5 for the 47th time. Bully. So someone else said, well, fuck them. If they're not going to make it, we will. So they did. But interestingly enough, it looks like Bully, to me, combined with Fable. And that's a good thing. I miss Fable. I think that Fable was a good gaming franchise, and that style of open world exploration, discovery, questing, combat looks pretty interesting to me when combined with the Harry Potter universe. In fact, one of the unique things is definitely the magic use and the dueling. Not that I understand how it's going to work, because there's no way they could fully explain the entire engine within a promotional video like this. But definitely, you know, it looks like there's strategy to it. Like, maybe there's a spell that slows your enemy, removes the shield, levitate, do a combo, push them back, stuff like that. It's not just like blast them with energy. You know what I'm saying? It's more like level on level on level of stacking spells that might become a unique combat flow. And have you ever done stuff like that in a game before? You know, I mean, me probably not. Maybe you guys have played games like that. Maybe MMOs do stuff like that. I don't know. But it certainly looks interesting to me. The combat in general. And then the universe, right? All the characters that are kind of like outside, like the periphery characters, the ones that didn't get necessarily highlights in the movies, looks like they may actually have some focus here. Some of the alternate, or not alternate, but the races that aren't humans, you know, looks like they're going to be featured in this game. Some unique creatures that were not in the movies. And because the game is open world, it doesn't just take place at Hogwarts. It means you're going to have opportunity to explore towns. You're going to have opportunity to go to dungeons and locations. It sounds really interesting. Okay? It does. It sounds really good. Now, will it translate to a good game? I don't know. A lot of the times you see promotional materials for this kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, it looks good on paper. It sounds good on paper. But then you actually play it. You know? I guess we'll see. For now, what I will say is, this was a really good way to introduce the game fully for the first time. All we had was little screenshots and snippets and guessing and conjecture about the game up to this point. This state of play answered a ton of questions about the game and actually showed a significant amount of in-engine gameplay footage that makes the game look quite good. Okay, in fact, it's actually quite funny because when the state of play was done, people were immediately posting up things like, now, this is how you promote a game. Hogwarts Legacy is the Starfield killer. Why are people saying that? Well, despite the fact that Starfield, the upcoming supposed open world RPG set in a space or sci-fi setting being made by Bethesda, is, you know, everyone's talking about it and hyped about it, but have we actually seen much or any actual gameplay of Starfield? No, in fact, I think just this week, they released a tiny little snippet that there will be some kind of a robot companion. And they show the robot companion, and he talks or something. And that's it. We still haven't seen any gameplay. We have no idea what this game is. Yet the game is being hyped as what's supposed to be one of the biggest releases of this year. How do you get hyped for something you still don't know about? You know, some people do. Just, oh, it's Bethesda, so it's going to be good. I'm not like that. You know, like, listen. I love Fallout. I love Elder Scrolls. That doesn't mean I just give Bethesda a pass and assume whatever they're pumping out next is good. They've had misses as well as hits. I mean, Fallout 76 is still a piece of dog shit. So, yeah, I don't just give them a pass at, oh, it's going to be amazing. So, in regards to Hogwarts Legacy, them actually going the extra mile and showing a ton of gameplay, explaining things about the game and the game engine and the game world, answering the questions people have been asking for like 2 years. This is exactly how you should be promoting your game. I think they did a really great job with the promotion of Hogwarts Legacy with the state of play yesterday. But again, interestingly enough, it's funny that it was a state of play. It's a cross-platform game, and I feel like with this being on a state of play, that some people actually got the wrong idea. I genuinely saw people online saying, man, it sucks that it's a Sony exclusive. It's not. You could play it on Xbox, but people didn't get that impression from the state of play because it was from Sony. You know, maybe Sony thought this game looks really good, and therefore they wanted the advertisement rights. Like maybe they have a contractual agreement to advertise the game for the makers of the game, because they think they can make good money on it or something. I don't know. I don't know how this works, but definitely it looks good to me. And now I'm actually quite interested in more information about it, and I can't wait to find out more about it over the course of the year. And by the way, holiday 2022, depending on when it releases, you know, if it releases in October, chances are there's 20 other games. But if it releases in like sometime in December, typically December is a very slow gaming month because most people want to get their games out 2 months before to get those boosted sales for Christmas. But let's say they release it like first or second week of December, it could actually really fill in a gap at the end of the year. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for this game. Now, actually, after seeing the state of play last night, I'm actually stoked. I'm actually, you know, pumped. And I had zero interest. I'm not even kidding. I had zero interest in Hogwarts Legacy until the state of play. The state of play absolutely positively did its job. Okay? Now, of course, everything that I just talked about is from a gamer's perspective. Okay? Now we have to talk about drama. We got to do it, okay? So, after this Hogwarts Legacy state of play finished on the internet yesterday, immediately I start to see posts on social media that have absolutely positively nothing whatsoever to do with the game or what people just saw. Instead, I start to see posts, which I knew were going to happen, all right, about this game right here. No. What I start to see are people saying, well, it's all well and good, but I'm boycotting Hogwarts Legacy. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to cover it. Now, I'm not just talking regular people. I'm talking prominent games journalists. I'm talking big-time content creators, people who are known in the industry as someone who would cover something like this, and people look to them for opinions, for coverage, you know, and the fact that someone already immediately, on the moment essentially that this was announced, with actual data behind it to tell you what the game was, the fact that immediately people came out on the internet and said, I'm boycotting it. If you're an outsider and you don't know the situation, you may be completely perplexed on what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Hogwarts Legacy is based on Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a book series that was turned into a movie series that was turned into 500 other pop culture spin-offs, including major theme park attractions and rides, other spin-off movie series, an insane amount of merchandise. Okay, it was an absolute dynamo in the 2000s, one of the biggest and most profitable things in pop culture. Since then, it still remains prominent, but has absolutely fallen off in popularity, with the most recent Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movies kind of falling underneath critical acclaim and basically saying, yeah, they're really trying to drag out the Harry Potter franchise without actually having Harry Potter in it. Should these movies even exist? There's controversy around the casting of those movies and shit. I don't even want to get into that. All right? But to understand the controversy around Hogwarts Legacy, you have to understand the controversy around the creator and original writer of the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, for a very long time, was regarded as one of the best cultural writers, that she had created this insanely unique universe that people found near and dear to their hearts. People found that in this universe, it seemed like there was room for everyone. And a lot of people actually associated their childhoods and developmental years with Harry Potter, whether it be the books or the movies themselves. And so, he said, get that photo off your stream. Oh my God. And so, you may be saying, what's the big deal? What are you talking about? What's the controversy here? Does the controversy have anything whatsoever to do with Harry Potter? No. Sadly, as what tends to happen with pop cultural icons, creators, and other people in the entertainment industry, when they leave their comfort zone of what they're good at, and they start to talk about things that basically they're not really authorities on, they get into trouble. And in the case of J.K. Rowling, the major controversy around her is that over the years, she said some pretty inflammatory, controversial, and very, very, how do I say, troublemaking things in regards to gender identity, trans people, hormone therapy given to people in general, but also to children. I'm not here to talk about that. This is definitely not the topic of my podcast. Okay, we're not here to talk about whether she's right or wrong. We're not here to talk about the insane amount of vitriol that's been thrown against her because of her comments in the last decade or so, that this kind of came out, that these were her opinions, and people were very adamantly against said opinions on the internet. But because these comments came out, all right, and she basically, rather than saying, oh, I'm very sorry that I caused controversy, she basically doubles down every chance she gets saying these comments. A lot of people don't like her anymore. And a lot of people have actually said that they are shocked, appalled, and basically incredibly disturbed that they grew up with a universe of Harry Potter as part of their lives, as part of their cultural upbringing. You know, they felt protected. They felt like they were included. They felt like this was a safe place for them to think about or enjoy the Harry Potter books and movies. And now, because of her comments that have absolutely nothing to do with Harry Potter, they feel like all of that's been destroyed. They feel like, wow, you shattered my thought process about what I was growing up liking. You know what I'm saying? And so, what was very interesting about the way that people reacted to the whole Hogwarts Legacy state of play yesterday is that there aren't people who don't like the game. There aren't people who don't like what the game is. There's people who just don't like J.K. Rowling anymore, who come out and say, well, because of what happened with her and her controversy, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to talk about Hogwarts Legacy. Like, I'm literally going to forget that the game exists. I'm going to pretend like it was never created, and I'm going to act like, you know, it's just not there. What are you talking about? What's Hogwarts Legacy? I never heard of it. Like, someone cast, like, the Men in Black flash you with their little flashy thing. Oh, wipe my memory. Like, it doesn't exist, right? Now, this is so weird because it creates a contentious point about the whole situation. So, wait a minute. If you talk about Hogwarts Legacy, does that mean you're okay with what J.K. Rowling has said about gender and you know, trans people and everything? No. No, it doesn't. Not at all. Okay? Let me clarify something here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? This game, Hogwarts Legacy, was not written by J.K. Rowling, was not created by J.K. Rowling. It's not being promoted by J.K. Rowling. In fact, J.K. Rowling has absolutely nothing to fucking do with this game. Did she create the universe behind it? Yes. But outside of that, this is an original work that has absolutely nothing to do with J.K. Rowling. So the fact that when they announce this game, people immediately say, well, sorry, not going to talk about it because J.K. Rowling. I'm like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? All right? Yeesh. And the more and more that I think about this situation, yes, I'm going to go in another direction with this podcast you guys were never expecting. The more and more that I think about this situation, I think about another situation that maybe isn't on as clear or direct of a scale, but a situation that was still incredibly similar, all right, to what's kind of happened here with the whole Hogwarts Legacy situation. And it's kind of a unique situation where I think we'll maybe emphasize this a little bit more. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, for the first time ever in any of my content, this morning we are going to talk about the excellent adventures of Gootecks and Mike Ross. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a unique time in the fighting game community around 2009 when Street Fighter 4 came out. The fighting game community was completely reinvigorated. It had effectually been dead for almost a decade. Yes, there were new fighting games that had come out, but no new Street Fighter installments had ever released in about 9 years. And because of that, competitive Street Fighter was just a grassroots movement. But in 2009, Street Fighter 4 released. And when Street Fighter 4 released, the entire community was reinvigorated. You had pros from the ancient days, the OGs, coming back out of retirement to support the game. But you had an equal amount of steady newcomers who had seen that whole grassroots movement happen, were intrigued by it, but didn't necessarily get too interested in it until Street Fighter 4 came out. Two of those prominent figures were Gootecks and Mike Ross. These were two guys who basically liked Street Fighter, but during that 2000s era, didn't necessarily get too heavily involved in it until the new game came out that became prominent. During the era of Street Fighter 4, these two guys became very, very notable personalities in the Street Fighter community. They grinded it out and became top players. In their own right, there's fighting game history showing that these guys were absolutely great players. And that translated into internet popularity for them when they made a show called The Excellent Adventures of Gootecks and Mike Ross. This was a very interesting show where it was just like two friends kind of sitting down on a couch discussing the state of Street Fighter and everything around it. They would have special guests on the show, including prominent top players, but also celebrities. I mean, hell, they had Kenny Omega, one of the best pro wrestlers in the world, on their show. They had other content creators like Maximilian Dude. They had top players like Justin Wong, etc., etc. I could go on and talk about this for a very long time, but the point I'm making is these guys were absolutely, positively popular to some extent. And what I mean by that is they were popular in fighting game terms. If you look at the big picture of the internet, their show, which was called The Excellent Adventures of Gutek and Mike Ross, and their channel Cross Counter TV, was popular for the most part in the fighting game circles, meaning they would bring in tons of views, they would get people watching their stuff in the scale of the fighting game community. Were they breaking millions of views on their videos or anything like that? No, they were not. But they were basically the top guys to cover fighting games for a very long time, only starting to lose prominence when other content creators started doing skits and stuff. I think like Maximilian Dude doing his Assist Me skits and stuff like that. That started to take a little bit more prominence over their kind of content. And essentially, these guys were incredibly popular for Street Fighter 4. Like, they really weren't known before Street Fighter 4. All right? And then when Street Fighter 4 hit and they started covering it and they started doing the show, they became two top guys. I mean, Gutex, I believe, was on G4 TV at one point as a host. And so they basically were treated with much respect, okay? Now, something else happened during the popularity of Gutex and Mike Ross. One day, the two of them were sitting down in a room filming some stuff in front of a green screen. While they were filming, the cameraman accidentally hit the camera, causing it to shake. This was the reaction that happened on the face of Gutex during that segment. And it was captured and immortalized because this face was so hilariously silly that it was put all over the internet as a meme. And when it became a meme, it took on a life of its own. And what I mean by that is that this face is known as PogChamp. It's not known as Gutex, the competitive Street Fighter player, or Gutex from the show Excellent Adventures of Gutex and Mike Ross. It's PogChamp, something that everyone who used Twitch knew about, used constantly because it became a universal emote on Twitch, but no one actually knew really the origins of who it was, nor did they really care. All right? And so, not only could you argue that Gutex and Mike Ross were very prominent in one very isolated community, the fighting game community, but then also you could argue that Gutex had his own independent run as a cultural icon, becoming a universally used emote on Twitch TV. Okay? Excuse me. So, you may be wondering why I'm talking about all of this, right? These guys sound like they were pretty darn popular. They were. They made tons of money doing this. They were very prominently popular. They had sponsorships out the ass. They won tournaments. They were hot shit during that time period, okay? And I'm not here to comment on the validity of that. I'm not here to comment on if I liked the content. Personally, I could never sit through more than 5 minutes of one of their shows, but that's my personal opinion. Like, I never found them funny or engaging or entertaining. A lot of people did. So because I didn't like it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it's not my cup of tea. You understand? Of course, there was some bad blood between me and these guys back then because they talked shit about me. I didn't even know who they were, yet apparently publicly they came out and talked shit about me repeatedly. I don't know why. I really have no clue. And that's where I'm leaving it. That's my personal involvement in it. I'm now taking myself out of it, okay? Now, you may say, okay, so what the hell does all this have to do with Hogwarts Legacy and J.K. Rowling? All right, I'll answer that question for you. Well, like everything, things get popular and then they fall out of prominence. During the mid-2010s, we're talking around the time around 2015, Street Fighter 4 effectively was dying. And so Street Fighter 5 hype began. The beta came out in 2015. The actual game came out in 2016. When Street Fighter 5 came out, for some odd reason, hold on, these guys stopped being pertinent. I don't know why, if really the appeal of them was their personalities and their expertise on Street Fighter, you would have thought that that would have carried over to Street Fighter 5 and there wouldn't have been a problem with them maintaining their popularity. But for whatever reason, and from what I can see on the internet, there's a lot of differing opinions on this. These two guys definitely fell out of prominence, and their show went from getting at some point over 300,000 viewers per episode down to barely being able to pull in like 20,000 viewers an episode. A lot of the times it looked like they really wanted to hang on to Street Fighter 4 and not move on to Street Fighter 5 for whatever reason. The rumor is that Mike Ross literally detested Street Fighter 5, and because of that, he really didn't want to continue to do the show anymore because he didn't want to cover it. and basically lost passion with making YouTube videos. Well, you know, I can actually 100% understand that. I hate Street Fighter V. And if I were a content creator that only made content focusing on Street Fighter, like these guys, I probably also would have quit. I'm not kidding. I hated Street Fighter V that much that I would not have forced myself to cover the game. So for whatever reason, these guys fell out of prominence and eventually disappeared from the internet. You didn't really hear from them anymore. I mean, the Cross Counter TV channel still exists, all right? And you can watch all their archived shows over there. They kept going for years, even though no one was really watching their content. The content kept going, and Gutex tried to hold down the channel by himself without Mike Ross, and yada, yada, yada. It's basically become history. You know, people who were there at the time remember them, and everyone else forgot they ever existed. However, this face remained prominent because it was a universal emote on Twitch. So even if you had forgotten the good, positive stuff that they had done in the past, this kept Gutex prominent, even though no one knew that it was Gutex. So, to get to the point, fast forward to 2020. Now listen, I'm no spring chicken. Look at me. My face actually, I think, looks worse than his. Seriously, I think I actually right now look worse than Gutex in this picture. Even though this picture was taken to try to emphasize that he had changed his appearance. Look at me. I'm like a big bloated fucking fish, right? So this is not a fucking looks contest or anything like that, all right? But in 2020, all right, Gutex tried to become prominent again on the internet, okay? He returned to his channel, made a video talking about how hard it was and what a grind it was to be a competitive Street Fighter player, and it resonated with a lot of people who had been part of that community at that time. A lot of people thought it was very simple to just be a competitive player. I personally can understand where he's coming from because I was a pro player at Super Turbo during a time when it wasn't prominent at all. There was no sponsorship, no partnership. It was an insane grind to stay good, and actually you had to travel everywhere because there was no consistently good online play with the games at that time. You had to play people in person. So even to some extent, it was more of a grind during the time when I was a pro player than even when Gutex was, all right? Now, that being said, okay, what ended up happening afterward is kind of infamous. It's kind of sad. Basically, Gutex kind of went off the deep end when COVID hit. He became one of these conspiracy theorist nutjobs. He started saying things on his Twitter account to his followers. Now, we're talking people who, hundreds of thousands of people who used to watch his content on a regular basis. And he started telling them things such as the COVID vaccine was fake or a hoax or could cause side effects that could kill you or get you sick or cause fertility problems, and that it wasn't proven that it worked. He would argue against masking up. He would argue against any kind of precautions to basically stop people from getting sick. A lot of people would argue the things that he said and did were completely irresponsible when you have a fan base of people who look up to you. In some cases, for many years, a decade, this guy was very prominent in the Street Fighter community. And the fact that he would come out and start saying these things to his fan base that were very irresponsible and not even factually vetted. He was basically believing conspiracy theories online and then passing them off to his followers as facts. Basically, people started calling him out on his shit. He was on a podcast at one point with other Street Fighter players, and he started talking about this, and they were like, Gutex, you're killing me. Like, what are you talking about? I can't have this on my show. You're going to get me canceled for having you on the show. We got to shut this shit down. Okay? Now, you might say, why do we care what Gutex had to say about this stuff? It's a good question. Let's continue. In early 2021, the infamous Capitol riot happened in Washington, D.C. A bunch of fucking loonies stormed the Capitol in an attempt to basically overthrow our government. It was one of the craziest things I've ever witnessed, and I haven't really publicly talked about it because I think everyone has pretty much covered this and talked about how despicable and stupid as fuck the act was. Appropriately, people have been arrested, and a lot of them are going to jail for a long time for their very heinous actions. During the Capitol riots, some people were killed, all right, trying to storm the Capitol. This individual went on his Twitter account calling them martyrs and saying that basically this should not stand, okay? Essentially, Gootecks, a fighting game player, prominent for making a comedy show during the early to mid 2010s for Street Fighter 4, was effectively telling his followers that the insurrection was good and should continue. You should overthrow the government. That's what he was actually telling people on his Twitter account. Gee, do you think that might have a backlash? It was such a backlash, all right, that Twitch TV literally said, we can't have this guy on our site anymore, even though none of you really even know who this guy is anymore. We got to get rid of him. He cannot be a universal emote on Twitch anymore, all right? Now, of course, they completely botched it. At first, they said they were going to have all these different faces for PogChamp, and they alternated different people's faces, which then led those people to be completely attacked on Twitch, and then eventually they settled in on a completely worthless emote that no one uses anymore. But the fact of the matter is that this guy, within 1 year of returning to the internet after basically kind of going away for a while, completely and utterly destroyed any kind of positive remembrances or reputation that he had for saying some of the stupidest, most unwell-researched, poorly thought-out, controversial, idiotic, dumb fucking things a human could say. I mean, wow. So how is this relevant? I'll tell you exactly how this is relevant, okay? Because, ladies and gentlemen, you can look at Gootecks and you can say, who is Gootecks? Gootecks was a guy who was a pro Street Fighter 4 player and a very prominent guy in pop culture around fighting games around that time period. All right? And you can say, well, you can still go back and you can watch The Excellent Adventures of Gootek and Mike Ross, and the show is still enjoyable. For some, I never enjoyed it, but many people did. And you can remember that during that time period, the things that he said and did were funny and pertinent, and he didn't say these crazy shit back then. He was liked for the person that he was as a part of the fighting game community. And I think that that can stand alone as a moment in time, saying even if you don't like who he is today and what he's become, you can still look back at that moment and say that was a unique cultural time period, the rejuvenation of the fighting game community. Street Fighter was prominent again, and he was at the forefront of that. He promoted it. He you know, was part of the competitive nature of it. He was part of the hype of it. He was one of the big hype men at that time, right? You were just as excited to watch a high-level Street Fighter tournament as you were to hear these guys joke about stuff in the fighting game community the next week when their new episode came out. At least that's what people tell me, all right? So there you go. So, let's get back to the subject of Hogwarts Legacy and J.K. Rowling, okay? You might say, well, who cares what a prominent fighting game character, what a prominent fighting game player and content creator says about COVID and the Capitol insurrection? To which I respond, you're right, who does care? I don't care what the fuck Gootecks has to say about that shit. Why would I? If he was talking about maybe Street Fighter or something, all right, then maybe I would care. But the fact that he comes out of nowhere and says this dumb shit about stuff he has nothing to do about. Now, is it incredibly irresponsible for him to do what he said and did? Yes. He has a following, and some people are just so stupid, they will listen to what he has to say. But the truth of the matter is it's not that big of a deal. At this point, he's not an authority on those things. Why would anyone treat him as such? All right? J.K. Rowling is not a fucking authority on gender. Okay? You have to understand this. She never was. She never will be. Whether you agree or disagree with her opinions on gender and people who are trans and that kind of stuff, okay? That's your own opinion. You're entitled to it. But she is not an authority on this shit. So if she says inflammatory statements about gender and stuff, okay? Gotcha. Maybe some people are upset about that. Now, does that mean that we can't then look back at the things that she did in the past that were creative and fun, a universe she created that was very interesting and exciting for a lot of people? It was an escape from reality. It was the thing you were into, your hobby, right? Just like I said, like Star Trek or Star Wars, there was the Potter fans, and this was their own immersive universe. I mean, hell, the Potter universe had more fucking movies than Star Trek. So, see what I'm saying? When I'm looking at this, and at this situation as a logical human, I can say, okay, did she say dumb shit? Of course. Maybe not. Maybe you agree with what she says, and I don't really care. Like I said, I'm not here to agree or disagree with what J.K. Rowling says, okay? The point I'm making here is that there are times in life when you have to realize not everything is just black and white, and not everything is either 100% approval or 100% disapproval, you know? Oh, I completely think this is all good, or, oh, 100% cancel culture, all right? You can disagree with the things that J.K. Rowling has said about gender, all right? You can. And just like you can completely disagree with the things that this gentleman said about COVID and the Capitol riots, and you could still go back and you can watch the excellent adventures of Gutex and Mike Ross and enjoy them. That's actually a logical thing you can do. Now, yeah, you might have a nagging feeling in the back of your head that this guy is a complete irresponsible asshole who may have caused more harm than good to the world in the big picture. But still, you can go back to that time when he was actually prominent and funny and fun, and you can enjoy that content for what it was at the time, understanding that it existed at a certain point in time. Just like you can go and watch the state of play on Hogwarts Legacy and understand that J.K. Rowling didn't make it, isn't involved in it, has nothing to do with it, and even if you don't like her comments on gender, this game could still be good. You don't actually have to be an obstinate idiot and say, oh, because I don't like something the creator of this universe said or has an opinion that I feel is harmful, I can separate the artistic work from the idiocy of this opinion the person has that basically has nothing to do with the artistic work. J.K. Rowling is not an authority on gender. So why do you hate everything she's ever done in her life because you disagree or find her comments harmful on gender? I don't understand this. This would be like saying Michael Jackson never made any good music because of all the controversy surrounding his personal life, the accusations against him that he abused children, right? There's been numerous notable documentaries. There's been court proceedings about this. I don't think we'll ever really have the answers about what really happened with Michael Jackson. Does that mean that Michael Jackson's music sucked? No. Factually, the answer is no. You don't negate everything that he did up to that point because there was controversy later. Woody Allen. Personally, I never liked the movie he ever made. But he was one of the most controversial figures because he was dating some underage girl who I guess was like the adopted daughter of another woman who he was dating. And all this shit that happened. Does that negate the fact that he made very popular, high-grossing movies that to this day people feel are kind of a cultural part of cinema? No. It doesn't negate what he's done as a cinematographer or director. He made those movies that people liked. You may not like the personal guy, but he made movies that were popular. So for you to look at this and say, oh, Hogwarts Legacy, okay, this is a game that's supported by someone who says inflammatory things about gender. Wrong. This game has nothing to do with J.K. Rowling except she created the universe. Everything in this is an original work made by creative people who are working their asses off right now to make a good video game. Now, I haven't played it. I'm not being paid by the company to shill it, all right? But I can definitely look at this as an outsider's perspective, okay? And I just look at this and I'm like, how can you completely write off this game? It's not out, and the person you don't like didn't make it. And you're going to say publicly to your following, oh, I'm not covering it, guys. Sorry, I got to abstain because I don't like J.K. Rowling. It's just like, what is going on? You know, like, where did the logic go? Where did intelligence go? Again, I feel like you can go back in time and you can watch very validly this show, even if you think that Gutex is a complete nutjob asshole today. The show is still enjoyable. It's still fun because it represents a time period that things were different. All right? You can go and enjoy Hogwarts and say, I don't support what J.K. Rowling says, but that's not the game. How can you not separate the two? I don't even understand how people get so, and you know what it is? It's emotion. That's exactly what it is. It's emotion. People get so wrapped up in their emotions that they let them dictate the things that they do, even if they're illogical. You may hate J.K. Rowling and what she says, and you're very emotionally invested in that. And because of that, now maybe you have really negative feelings towards Harry Potter because she made Harry Potter, and now you feel betrayed. And I feel for you if you're one of those people, because that's messed up. You know what they say, that you should never meet your heroes, because sometimes they end up being nothing like what you actually thought them to be. But on the flip side of that, I kind of have to say the following. Why do we tend to put these people on pedestals to begin with? You know what I'm saying? Like J.K. Rowling was an author who made a series of books that basically charmed the world. They expecto patronum dust, right? Or whatever the fuck. And we all like the Harry Potter universe. I like the Harry Potter universe. I'm not in love with it, but I've seen the movies. I think it's pretty unique and interesting, right? So why then do I care about her opinion on anything else on this planet but Harry Potter? Why do we ask LeBron James for his opinions on politics? You know, he's a basketball player. He's one of the best ever. Why the fuck do I care what he thinks about our government and how it's run? I don't, but people do. Oh, here's what LeBron said on politics. Why do I care? He has nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? So in this situation, why do we care what Gutex has to say about COVID and the Capitol riots? The logical answer here as humans should be, we don't. I don't care what this fucker said. He's an idiot. Just listen to what he says. It's completely nonsensical. There's no facts to it. He's a dunce. All right? So what? What you do is you say, okay, you're a dunce, bye. Oh, by the way, this is really funny. Let me go watch it. And the same thing can be said here. You may say, wow, she's an idiot. She says dumb shit about gender or whatever. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy a game set in the universe she created 20-some years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't understand that mentality at all. Why are you putting people on a pedestal to begin with? Maybe, just maybe, we should all look in the mirror and say, why do we idolize these people so much to begin with? Yeah, it's cool to think back that they're intelligent people, but maybe they're not. I'm just saying, maybe they just ain't so great. And we really pumped them up to be something that they're not. And now when they get exposed for that, now we kind of look in the mirror and like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm embarrassed that I actually looked up to that person the way that I did for so long. Maybe I should have realized that humans are fallible creatures and we all have shortcomings and we can all say and do stupid shit and have dumb beliefs. And maybe I shouldn't have believed that this person was so important to begin with. J.K. Rowling created a really cool universe. All right? Millions of people around the world absolutely love Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter. I don't love it. That doesn't mean that everything she says is important. It doesn't. At all. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I can play Hogwarts and say, wow, I looked at the state of play. The game looks good. It looks very good to me, actually. Graphically, the gameplay elements, exploring this world that you've never really had the opportunity to explore this fully before. They're going to have some creative control over the universe because it's set in the 1800s instead of the Harry Potter time. That's cool. It looks like potentially could. Oh, by the way, and something I didn't even mention, no microtransactions. They outright came out and said this game will have 0 microtransactions. It is a fully featured, fully fledged single-player RPG that will not nickel and dime you either, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay? So it's kind of like, wow, that is really, really cool. That this might be the first opportunity in many years that not only we're going to play a game set in the universe of Harry Potter, but that it's going to have things in it that will maybe extrapolate upon that universe. You know what I'm saying? It looks great. Do I now erase this? Do I say, oh, I can't ever show this ever again because I don't like J.K. Rowling? That's the dumbest, most immature, uneducated, stupidest mentality you can possibly have. How can you be a games journalist? How can you be a prominent content creator with an audience and not understand the basic concept of separating the art from the artist? Or in this case, not even, because Hogwarts isn't being made by J.K. Rowling. Just because it has an association with the universe she created, you're canceling the game? You're an idiot. Damn. I mean, I understand that your fucking emotions can take you over in some respects. And maybe when you're just playing this game a few times, you'll be like, ah, shit. You know, it really sucks that she fucking said that stuff. But does that mean that the game has to be erased from existence? No. Why would you even say that? Like, I'm reading that, like, are you out of your mind? Like, oh my God. You know, like, anyway. That's the best comparison I could do. You know, I tried to make it personal with fighting game stuff because that's just something recently that happened, and I was like, that's like almost a direct one-to-one comparison, that someone who was once prominent can fall from grace for dumb shit that they said, or things you just disagree with, depending on your point of view, I guess. And then people want to erase everything they've ever done, and it's like, I just don't understand that. I don't. Listen, and by the way, I'm not supporting the things that they said at all, but you got to understand that not everyone's perfect, everyone's flawed, and people do dumb shit. You know, and that doesn't mean that everything just never existed. Let me tell you something. If we canceled and erased every single thing in history because someone associated with it did something wrong or did something stupid, everything would be a black hole. There would be nothing. Zero. There would be absolutely nothing left. You know? You got to get to a point where you understand that you got to take a step further than that. It's not, everything is not so simple. Everything is not black and white. We actually have to look at things with context. I don't care that J.K. Rowling said something dumb about gender because the context has nothing to do with Hogwarts Legacy. You see? Okay. I hope at least that was insightful for some. And I hope that if you enjoyed that, because I do every once in a while do a different kind of podcast like this. I did it for the history of FromSoft games. I'm doing it today. When I feel like I have something I can add to a current conversation, I will do a more in-depth and informative podcast like today. I can't do this all the time, okay? But I'll do it when I have the opportunity to do it, and I feel like I can maybe say something insightful. I hope that some of you maybe felt some insight today about Hogwarts Legacy and the ridiculous controversy about it on the internet right now because of what I just put out. And if you feel that way, please give the video a like, leave a comment, give the stream a like, tell someone about the podcast. My goal, as I've explained many times, is that in the long term, I can diversify my content. I can make it that I'm known both as a, you know, internet content creator, all right, as well as someone who has a podcast. You know, I want to diversify because, let's be honest, I'm about to hit 40 years old. I'm not going to be able to be playing games full time for the rest of my life, and I know that. I'm not stupid. I'm getting older. Eventually, I'm already feeling the first signs of, like, carpal tunnel in my right hand. I actually am. And because of that, I know that there's not going to be the possibility of me doing this kind of content forever, when I mean gaming. And what I would like to do is branch out a bit every once in a while. All right? So, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me why in the comments. Destroy me. Go ahead. Just don't be super mean, because I can't approve those comments on YouTube, because then people will complain and report the fucking video. Okay. Let's get to shoutouts. All right? Let's start with the YouTube side of things. My dashboard's not loading. Reload. Okay. BattleDuck 9000 re-upped his membership. 10 months of support. Thank you so much, BattleDuck, for the ongoing support. Tony Skittle live streams, did a super chat and said, interesting podcast. Well, thank you, Tony. Although at that point, an hour ago, I hadn't even begun talking about this. But, I appreciate that. Crap. Oh, come on. Resize. Still doesn't fit. Resize. It finally fit. Holy macaroni. It was... I had to shrink it really. Tony Skittle podcast, or Tony Skittle live streams. Can you shrink your goddamn fucking name there? Seriously. Shrink it. It doesn't fit on my leaderboard. change your entire persona on YouTube because your name doesn't fit on my leaderboard. All right. Let's continue. Huh? Oh, so a few shout outs because there were some tips that came in earlier, and then I'm going to shout out these tips that actually had messages attached. First tip of the day today was from Matthew Stratton, who tipped $3, said, yo, yo, nice, nice. Thank you, Matthew. Lies for Soul did a $4.20 tip, says, does a cat like Jasper drop a lot of fur on your furniture because I'm considering getting a cat? An okay amount. It's not actually too heavy. He's not a thick-haired cat or a heavy-haired cat, so he doesn't shed that much, but he does shed. You know, Lint Roller will usually take care of that after a few passes, but there are cats that definitely shed giant tufts of hair as well, so it really depends on the breed that you get. But he's not that bad. Let's see here. Jasper the Great did a $10 tip. Thank you, Jasper, for that. And Better Day Today tipped me $2. And this one I had not included here. And he says, better day today than Monday in regards to toilet troubles. I'll turn this lemon into lemonade. Could potentially serve a greater purpose. P.S. Speaking of Hogwarts, I learned wizards sometimes magically enchant a toilet to prank muggles. There you go. What, you have the toilet bite their ass off or something? How, enchant a toilet? That's a little creepy. Not the guy you just banned tipped me $4.20. He says, you have to be careful about how media spins this stuff. J.K. Rowling haters are legit on the same level as your detractors. They'll dox and threaten her family. She doesn't hate trans, but she calls out when trans things hurt women's rights, and they hate that. I, again, am not here to say that I agree or disagree with anything that she has said. In fact, it's weird because I can't even factually figure out what she has said because it gets spun so much on the internet. Seriously, like, you start reading one thing that she said, and it's like, well, that's not so bad. But then you read another thing, and it's like, well, that's terrible. But then you read it, like, well, did she say that? I can't even tell. I can't find factually, actually, the truth of the situation. But that wasn't the point of what I'm saying here, you understand? The point is you can separate the bad stuff that the person has said and done from the content that they have created and still enjoy the content, especially in this case where the game isn't even involved with her. You see what I'm saying? And people don't seem to understand that. They seem to like, oh, I just can't get it out of my mind. I'm emotionally so upset and invested in what's happened here that I gotta say the game doesn't exist. That's a ridiculous notion. And what's funny is people in the stream literally don't understand what I'm saying because they're all saying, oh, I agree with her, I disagree with her. That's not the topic we're talking about. This is not, oh, I agree or disagree at all. This is separate that from the game. And by the way, as I cover Hogwarts Legacy, I will be separating that from the game. I'm not going to be bringing it up because it has nothing to fucking do with it. Okay. Only Fear of Death to the $1.50. And says, I think you make a good point to separate art from an artist. I think people don't want to feel like they're supporting an evil person. I enjoy R. Kelly's music, but I can't listen to it on Spotify because I feel like I'm supporting a child molester. You know, yeah, and I listen, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm definitely not saying that every situation is clear cut. Can I make a confession? I Believe I Can Fly. I listened to the shit out of it in the 90s. No one knew that R. Kelly was a scumbag back then, and I listened to it. Absolutely, I did. I owned the Space Jam soundtrack, and I listened to it all the time. I still actually kind of like the music, like this song. I can hear it playing in my head, and I actually like feel a little, you know what I mean? Like that was a time in my life where I heard that song. It was like an inspirational song, and I hear it, and I'm kind of like, oh, you know. But that doesn't mean that I have to like R. Kelly as a person. I think he's a scumbag too for what he's did. He's in jail, right? So there you go. Liza for Soul tipped $20 and says, I finally caught up to you. I've been watching the Elden Ring playthrough while playing it at the same time. In case you find a cave or chat tells you something quest related. I won't figure it out myself. We're in Caelid and we need to find the dude in the shack. Well, that's what I'm looking. Yeah, I know where he is too, but I don't know if you can get to him from where I am. I'm gonna go back to where I died yesterday, do that, and explore a little more, and then I'll probably go back down there. We'll have a good time today. Thank you, Liza for Soul, for the tip. Although, doesn't that mean you're going to basically spoil yourself watching my stream if you got caught up with me? I mean, more power to you if that's what you want to do. If you want me to do it first, then you kind of do the stuff after. But a lot of people have stayed away from the streams that when they haven't caught up with me because they don't want to be spoiled. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Play Cool took the $1.50 and says, been a while, man. Let me add another example to what you said. The writer of the Witcher series said a lot of dumb shit over the years to the point I don't like this guy, but I love the Witcher books. By the way, how do you feel about Horizon Forbidden West so far in comparison to Horizon Zero Dawn? Honestly, it's pretty much the same for me. Like, I don't think I like it anymore or dislike it anymore. At first, I loved it. Then I liked it less the further I got in, realizing that the side content is completely uninspired and basically worthless in 9 times out of 10. There are a few missions where maybe you'll get a rewarding bow, or maybe the story actually is interesting to see how one of the side characters has a nice interaction with Aloy because now you did something nice for them. But outside of that, it's pretty much the same game. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that innovative. The graphics are quite good. But I kind of feel about the same like I did the first game. Albeit, I do feel like the game's a little bit more pertinent today because back then, similar games had come out. For example, Tomb Raider was an entire game based around using a bow. And this game is an entire game based around using a bow. But Tomb Raider's not prominent anymore. So this game kind of doesn't feel as much of, say, a lift or a borrow as it did back then. But still, then, I mean, the more I play it, I'm realizing it's not that great of a game. It's good. I like the plot. And I definitely like the graphics. Okay. Cracker Jacks. Timmy, $15, and it's good to see you, Phil. Everyone deserves to be heard and have an opinion. Cancel culture is not a healthy solution. Again, you know, I feel like there's much more intelligent ways to tackle this stuff than a hate mob, you know? Listen, if you have valid concerns about Hogwarts Legacy, you feel like the game is no good, right? That's fine. That's not what's being said here, okay? Swagonito tipped me $10 and says, hey, Phil, I want to get my cat a collar with a bell. I think King Jasper has a collar with a bell. Does it ever annoy him? Did it take 2 collars pretty well with no issue? Should I get a leather collar? I want to avoid irritation on my cat's neck. Well, actually, Jasper's had many, many collars over the years, and it wasn't until this current collar that he has that it stopped bothering him. We tried a lot of collars. We tried fabric. We tried leather. We tried that synthetic material, more elastic style. It seemed like no matter what, the collars always kind of bothered him. And so we would get him a new collar every few months. A lot of the times he would scratch it with his claws, and it would actually kind of like destroy the collar, and we'd have to get him a new one after just a few months anyway. In this particular case, he's had this collar for over a year, and it seems to be good, like it's not bothering him. And that's a good thing. Okay? That's a great thing. That he's not bothered by it, because I want him to be comfortable, you know. We need him to have a collar, because we need to know where he is. When you hear the bell ringing, you know that he's around the house, in that part of the house. We can find, there's been times when, like, we're going out, we're like, oh, where's Jasper? And then come to find out, he caught himself, one time, he closed himself into the closet. He crawled into the closet and closed the door behind him and couldn't get it open again. Now, imagine if we didn't know where he was because we didn't have the bell. You know, he would have been stuck in the closet all day. So it's always good with a pet like that, especially one that can be very mobile and get around the house, to know where they are at all times. So the bell is necessary for sure. But, yeah, I don't really know particularly what it is about his current collar. Hold on. Tell everyone what you think about your collar. Here he comes. I got Jasper Kitty to come in the office. Jasper, tell the audience what you like about your collar. He was talking to me. Jasper, tell everyone what you like about the collar so that people know what to do to get a kitty a nice collar. Jasper, you want to tell the audience? Come up here. Come over here, buddy. Now he won't come over. You want to crawl on me when I'm playing the game, but now when I want you over here, you won't come over here. He's sitting on the floor and he won't come over. Come over here, Jasper Kitty. You're not going to come over here? Seriously, here he comes. Come on up here. Come up here. Come up here. I want to show them your collar. Come on up. I'm allowing you to come up. Come on up. He's standing right here. Come up. Yes, jump up on me. He won't. Now he won't jump up. Do you want to jump on the chair? You can't win with this guy. Are you going to jump on the chair? Or do you... People are yelling at me to pick him up now. Is this part of the podcast? No, we canceled the the podcast got canceled. I talked about something. I don't know if you're aware. I'm already canceled. The podcast is over. No, Jasper Kitty, come back. He left. I wanted to show them your collar. Get back in here. Come up here. Here, come over here. Come over here, you silly kitty. All right. Now, here's Jasper Kitty. And his collar is it looks like a synthetic style fabric. I can't really tell. But it's a looser collar. It's not tight, and it's not, it's none of those kind of choker things. And it's not, oh boy, he wants to go. It's not leather. It's, yeah, it's not cloth either. It's not, I think it's a synthetic. It's got a little cute bow, a plaid bow. But he really likes this one. It doesn't bother him at all. Like, we never catch him scratching it. The other ones, he always scratched. And he was, like, constantly trying to move them and put them around his neck. And this one he didn't, so. You're glad I exist? Well, I'm glad I exist too, Donkey Kong. Thank you. He's so big, he's no bigger than he ever was, actually. He's exactly the same size he's been since we got him. Kevin Keys, to me, $5 says, nice thought-provoking pre-stream. Well, thank you very much. Kevin, I appreciate that. I hope that it did. If anything, I hope that's the point, is that it does actually get some people thinking about stuff. Ugly Tuna Roll tipped me $4, said, good morning, Phil. We need some damn Kirby. We are the 3 Yarn Triplets. Yes, remember the Yarn Triplets? I remember them. Way back in the day. The original Kirby playthrough I ever did was quite good. Jad F. tipped me $1.50 and said, did you see the GT7 controversy? The game is an always online game and has been hard down for over a day. It's been patched to increase the grind of in-game money 100-fold, forcing MTX down the throats of people. The AI is brain dead and fans are review bombing it. He did another $1.50 tip, and he says, game journalists gave it a 9 out of 10 without having the big picture just to suck off to Sony. Would you think we're going to see the same with the 10-plus incoming multiplayer games from Sony? Massive microtransactions in a $70 game and predatory mechanics? Maybe. I've always said the early reviews are worthless. When you're early reviewing a game like that, you are not seeing the big picture. You're not actually seeing the game for what it is at launch. You're seeing it for what it was days before. There's day one patches, an online experience you're not getting. You don't know effectively what that game is going to be until it actually is in the hands of consumers. When you review it early, you're effectively reviewing an unfinished product as if it's the finished product. You're being disrespectful, dishonest, and wasting everyone's time for money. That's why I don't approve of those early reviews. I actually heard that GT7 looks like shit. That a lot of people were criticizing its graphics, saying this is supposed to be like a game that always was graphically a showcase of the Sony console that it was on, and in this case, it doesn't look very good. I guess I dodged a bullet there because I was considering playing it. Better Day Today, Timmy $2, says, Hogwarts lore, if a muggle goes to flush a magically enchanted toilet, instead of going down the drain, it does the opposite. Getting bitten would be better. Hey, Jasper, I'm a fan of yours. My cat is sleeping behind me right now. Jasper Kitty just jumped into the window, and he's looking out to the front of the street. Because now he knows that the door's open, because I opened it. Cool. So I guess what you're saying is the toilet would erupt with shit up your ass. That's pretty disgusting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the pre-stream podcast. I hope you enjoyed the very different kind of podcast today. And like I said, when I have opportunity to cover topics like this, I will. If I feel like I can add some insight. Today, I felt like I could add some unique insight to the situation. All right. And I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, again, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment, or telling someone else about the podcast so people know that this asshole isn't just someone who yells at games. He's actually someone who every once in a while puts out something a little bit more. All right. Guys, thank you for a great pre-stream podcast. And now, let's get to gaming. Sounds like a plan.